Early in the morning, he came again to the temple. All the people came to him and sat down, and he taught them. And the scribes and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in adultery. And placing her in the midst, they said to him, "Teacher, this woman has been caught in the act of adultery. Now the law of Moses commanded us to stone her."
Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy.
Jesus replied, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he fell among the robbers, who stripped him and beat him and departed, leaving him half dead. Now by chance a priest was going down that road, and when he saw him, he passed on the other side. So likewise the Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side."
But a Samaritan, as he journeyed, came to where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion, and went to him and bound up his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. And then he set him on his own beast and brought him to an inn and took care of him. And the next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper, saying, "Take care of him, and whatever more you spend, I will repay you when I come back." Which of these 3 do you think proved neighbor to the man who fell among the robbers? He said, "The one who showed mercy on him." And Jesus said to him, "Go and do likewise."
And as soon as it was morning, the chief priests with the elders and the scribes and the whole council held a consultation. And they bound Jesus, and they led him away and delivered him to Pilate. And Pilate asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And he answered him, "You have said so." And the chief priests accused him of many things. And Pilate again asked him, "Have you no answer to make? See how many charges they bring against you." But Jesus made no further answer, so that Pilate wondered. Now at the feast, he used to release for them one prisoner for whom they asked. And among the rebels in prison who had committed murder in the insurrection, there was a man called Barabbas. And the crowd came up and began to ask Pilate to do as he would usually do for them. And he answered them, "Do you want me to release for you the king of the Jews?" For he perceived that it was out of envy that the chief priests had delivered him up. But the chief priests stirred up the crowd to have him release for them Barabbas. And Pilate again said to them, "Then what shall I do with the man whom you call the King of the Jews?" And they cried out again, "Crucify him." And Pilate said to them, "Why? What evil has he done?" But they shouted all the more, "Crucify him." So Pilate, wishing to satisfy the crowd, released for them Barabbas, and having scourged Jesus, he delivered him to be crucified.
So speak and so act as those who are to be judged under the law of liberty. For judgment is without mercy to one who has shown no mercy. Yet mercy triumphs over judgment.
We see in the Scriptures this morning, and many other places in the Scriptures, that the Pharisees as well as others were constantly pushing Jesus to follow the law, do what the law says. And Jesus continually pushed back and said, there is something better than the law. There is mercy. They said, "Stone the woman in adultery. Don't heal on the Sabbath. Don't help the man along the side of the road," to crucify him. But Jesus, being led by the Spirit of love, compassion, forgiveness, and mercy, said no to this. Our scripture lesson today is an excellent example of this mercy. Many of you will be familiar with the story of Joseph. I know him as Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat, but that shows my age. That's back in the 70s. It was a really good musical. But whenever I think of Joseph and the story, that's what I think of. But it is the story of Joseph, who had many things happen to him. And I'm not going to try and spend too much time going through that story because there are many different aspects to it. But let's just say that the children of Jacob gave up Joseph. They sold him into slavery. They did a number of terrible things to him. But lastly, they sold him into slavery into Egypt. And while he was in Egypt, Joseph became who Joseph was already, a wise man. And Pharaoh, come to realize this, made him in command of a great many things. And when the famines came and struck the land, Joseph's family, who lived in the land of Canaan, came to Egypt looking for food, looking for mercy. And Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" But his brothers could not answer him. They were stunned. So dismayed were they at his presence. Then Joseph said to his brothers, "Come closer to me." And they came closer. And he said, "I am your brother Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt. And now to not be distressed or angry with yourselves, because you sold me here, for God sent me before you to preserve life. For the famine has been in the land these 2 years, and there are 5 more years to come. So it is not you who sent me here, but God, who has made me a father to Pharaoh, a lord to his house, and ruler over his land. Hurry and go up to my father and say to him, 'Thus says your son Joseph, God has made me Lord of all Egypt. Come down to me, do not delay. You shall settle in the land of Goshen, and you shall be near me, and you and your children and your children's children, as well as your flocks, your herds, and all that you have. I will provide for you there. And since there are 5 more years of famine to come, so that you and your household and all that you have will not come to poverty.' And Joseph kissed all his brothers, and he wept upon them. And after that his brothers talked with him." I encourage you to go to Genesis and to read the entire story. It's about 4 or 5 chapters long, starting around chapter 45 or so. And it goes a number of chapters. It is an intriguing story. It is one of many ups and downs, but you see the hand of God working with Joseph as he brings God's love and forgiveness and mercy to his brothers. There are many, many different aspects to mercy. There are so many different ways to talk about mercy. And so I will ask that you bear with me as I bring up a few things. But mercy is, as I was sitting there and Amanda was reading the scripture from Luke, which I believe is part of the Sermon on the Mount, I could have just ended it right there. Put on some music, slow it down, and let me think about those beautiful words that Jesus spoke to the people in the Sermon on the Mount. To me, one of the foundations to all of that is the foundation of mercy. And the foundation of mercy is one of forgiveness, of love, of helping people instead of maybe choosing another path. Mercy is one of those foundational stones that we build our faith upon with Jesus Christ. What is mercy? Well, you can find many definitions of mercy. It is taken from several different Hebrew and Greek terms that lie behind the English mercy. And generally they mean things like loving kindness, compassion, pity, to show mercy. And this morning I want to talk and use a couple of examples that are of using mercy. We have a choice. We have a choice to show mercy or not to show mercy. Is our brother Mark here, who was here last Sunday? I don't believe Mark is here, and I told Marilee I wouldn't use this example if he was here. He said he wanted to come back, but I didn't know if he would. But I made a choice last week, and I am not at all lifting myself up on anything telling you this, because Marilee is the one that got after me. So, and she's not here, she's in the classroom. But we were coming to church last Sunday, and Mark was walking down the road, leaving he'd been to Walmart. And Marilee, we both saw him. I was driving, and we almost got to the church, which was just a few feet from where we saw him. And she says, you should go back. You should go back and see what he needs. I said, and I pushed back. I'm so ashamed. But I pushed back, and it was like, I got stuff I need to do here at church and so on. But then she got out because she had to get ready for something more immediate than I did. And I paused, and I thought about it, and I made the choice to go back. So I was in my car already, and I just went back and did a U-turn and came back and stopped and picked him up. I said, what do you need? Where can I take you? Because he was walking somewhere, and if you remember, last Sunday it was pretty cold. And he said, well, actually, I'm going right up here to this church. I think it's the Nazarene church, meaning ours. He said, the guy at Walmart said that they maybe could help me. And I said, okay. I said, well, let's go there. And so I took him in, and I said, this is where I attend, and this is where I was going. He said, oh. I said, Mark, he had introduced himself. I said, Mark, let me take you in, and let's see what we can do. We make choices. We made choices all day long about what we're going to do. And that was a choice that I made. I wish I could sit and tell you that I felt like God directed me to do that, but I would be lying. It was a choice. It was an opportunity, and I chose to take it. And I'm glad that I did. And I think we were a tremendous blessing to Mark. I don't know if we'll see him again. I don't know what he's doing. But in that moment, at that time, we were there for him. And all of us as a congregation and a community provided him a blessing from the Lord. My son Daniel, he plays basketball. And when he was younger, just out of high school, many of you know that he went to OSU to graduate school and got his doctorate from OSU. And he lived with us. And he would join basketball teams. He loved to play basketball, and so they had pickup basketball games and leagues for people, and so he would join those. And every so often he would be starting a new team and be on there. And so that was back when Marilee and I would still try and go to his basketball games and support him and stuff. And I remember one time that he was playing, and it was a new team. And he didn't really know the guys. They didn't know each other. And at halftime, he came over to us after talking to the guys. He came over to us, and I said, looks like you're playing a pretty good game. He says, yeah. He says, but I don't know what to do. I said, what do you mean, what to do? He said, I don't know when I should pass it or when I should shoot. I said, well, I really didn't know what to tell him. I said, I guess that's something you'll figure out. He goes, yeah. He says, I just got to get to know the guys better and stuff. I thought of that because he had a choice to make. And I don't want to carry this example too far because it only is good for so much. Because Jesus gives us very important and very firm directions on mercy. But in Daniel's case, it was something that he had to decide. He had to learn which way he should go. Should he shoot the ball or should he pass it? And those were choices that he had to learn to make. Now, Jesus makes it very clear to us. And I'm saying that we have a choice, and we do. But Jesus says this should be your choice. Let's be clear about that. The choice is mercy. The choice is love. The choice is to forgive if somebody needs to be forgiven. The choice is to receive forgiveness and accept it, and so on. Those are the choices that Christ calls us to make today. How will we choose? From section 162 of Words of Prophetic Guidance for Our Church, I'd like to share these words. And as I share these words with you, I just thought about mercy in and out of all of these different things that are shared. From the earliest days, you have been given a sacred principle that declares the inestimable worth of all persons. Do not forget. The one who created all humankind grieves at the shameful divisions within the human family. A prophetic people must work tirelessly to tear down the walls of separation and to build bridges of understanding. You hold precious lives in your hands. Be gentle and gracious with one another. A community is no stronger than the weakest within it, even as the one you follow reaches out to those who were rejected and marginalized. So must the community that bears his name. Be gentle and gracious with one another. Marilee's sister Nancy's oldest son Nate and his wife Erin just had a baby boy a few months ago. And of course, whenever we see Nancy, we get to see pictures from proud grandma, and he's adorable, of course, and it's so much fun to see Greg and Nancy, who had become grandparents before we did. No, anyway, I got to talk to my sons about. No, okay. But when you have a little newborn baby, and I'm sitting here talking about this, and we have parents in the back with little ones, you have to be so gentle. So gentle with the little ones. Can you think for a moment what it would be like to be that gentle with each other? How our community would be blessed if when we talked with each other, when we served each other, when we shared with each other, and whatever we do, that we thought about the gentleness that we care for a little one, and to be that gentle with each other. Many of you know that I am a hospice chaplain. And no, you weren't going to get away without hearing sharing an experience of me being a hospice chaplain. That just is who I am now. But we had a family, an elderly couple, who were both on hospice, and she basically lived downstairs, and he had his room upstairs, and he was still able to go up and down the stairs, and so his bedroom was upstairs, and she was in a bed downstairs, and they were both on hospice. Well, one day he took a very sudden turn for the worse. He declined very rapidly, and he was upstairs in his bed, and his wife had no way of knowing because they could not talk to each other when they were not together. But we came, and we were there, and I was visiting with her. I happened to be there visiting with her, and our social worker was there, and we just kind of happened to be there, I think because he had declined. And she didn't know this. And so we talked, and we said, we need to tell her that he is not doing well at all. And so we said a little prayer, and we went in, and we sat at her bedside, and we shared with her. And she just was already filled with the love of God, and she said, "Oh, that's okay. I knew that it was going to happen eventually, and so it's happening," and she just took it really well. And we just felt really badly that she was downstairs and he was upstairs, and we were not able to take her upstairs because, first of all, for safety purposes, and also there are rules about that, and so we were not able to do that. But we wanted to figure out a way that we could bring them together. So what do? You call the squad. So we called 911 or whoever called the squad, and they came, and two gentlemen that are trained for those kinds of things took her in whatever carrier they had, stretcher or something, and they took her up the stairs and put her on the bed beside him. To me, that's mercy. It wasn't a forgiveness or anything like that. It was a mercy. It was allowing her to be with her husband during his final hours. That's a little bit of my world and where I live and where I work. But mercy is shown all around us. There are times and places for mercy all of the time. And it is my prayer that you will seek that out, that all of us will find out what it is that we can do. What merciful act can we enter into today? The last story that I'd like to share with you in closing is a story from the 3rd chapter of Acts. And it is when John and Peter, I think it is, are standing outside of the gates of Bountiful. And there is somebody there who is asking for alms. And they choose to have mercy on him. And they come up to him and they said, "We don't have any money to give you, but what we have, we will give you." And they healed him. And he went on his way praising God. It is my prayer this morning that as a congregation and as individuals and disciples of Jesus Christ, that we will rediscover. Not that any of you need to rediscover, you guys. But let us rediscover what it means to be a merciful servant for our Lord. Merciful and loving to each other and gentle with each other. Gentle like we're holding a newborn baby.